You're listening to The Upland Rookie, a podcast presented by Onyx Hunt, Final Rise, and Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. And you're listening to episode 86, part 1 of my conversation with Robert Poor from Borderland, Upland. Buckle up, it's going to be a good one. And this podcast is also presented to you by Onyx Hunt, the most comprehensive public and private land ownership data mapping tool in the world. Many tools and layers like crop types, tree species, waypoints, and so much more. The Onyx Elite membership is going to give you a ton of access to a whole bunch of benefits, discounts on awesome gear. If you're not using Onyx Hunt already, I highly encourage you, get over to onyxhunt.com and sign up today. And be sure to check out Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, the only sporting dog, high-performance dog food I'm feeding my string of dogs. Have been using this for several years, and Inukshuk has delivered and lived up to and surpassed all the hype you've been hearing about online through friends, kennels, breeders, all that. And it has just been a high-quality premium food. I've been able to cut back several cups of food for my dogs, still keeping weight on them during season, during trialing, whatever it might be. These dogs are in the best shape they've been in, personally, in a long, long time. And thanks to Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, they have 4 incredible formulas. Check them out at inukshukpro.com. And last but not least, Final Rise Gear. I am so pumped and proud to be representing the Final Rise brand. They have been producing year after year quality premium upland gear that is made for the hunter, the bird hunter who is putting on miles after miles, season after season, and wants gear to hold up to the elements of how you are hunting. You got to look no further than finalrise.com. Check out the Summit vest, the Summit XT vest, which is brand new, the Sidekick vest, as well as the Legacy. So many vest options, which are totally customizable. I'm pretty darn confident you're going to find something that works for you and your setup. So check them out at finalrise.com. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Upland Rookie Podcast. I hope you're ready for an episode today. We got a two-parter with Robert Poor. And if you're wondering, hey, that name sounds familiar, you may follow him on Instagram, Borderland Upland. This is, to my knowledge, I think I did confirm with Robert as well. I'm going to go out on a limb there and say this is the first time he's been on a bird hunting podcast. So I'm very excited, very thankful that he was able to take some time from his schedule, training, his life, his job, all that stuff, to sit down with me and do a podcast together. So super fun being able to get to know Robert a little bit more. We'll dive into more of who he is in our interview. So get ready. This is part 1, and part 2 will drop in a couple days. Hey, I'm going to keep this intro kind of short. I know I say that quite a bit. I hope, first off, everyone's doing well. I hope you enjoyed the series I did with Todd Agnew from the Spaniel training. That was a super fun episode. I really enjoyed chatting with him, chatting spaniels, trials, all that good stuff. Obviously, we chat a lot of pointing dogs, which I love. I'm super passionate about. But chatting with Todd a couple weeks ago, super fun. Got my head kind of spinning around springers, and we obviously talked about the cocker more, and we talked about the cocker again on today's episode with Robert. Or it might be on part 2 actually, but regardless, we chat about the cocker, which is kind of taking over the world by storm. But we kind of talk about the practical uses for a cocker. So if you haven't listened to the episode with Todd, I'd highly recommend go back, check out that episode, whether you want to learn more about the Cocker Spaniel, the Springer Spaniel. Those are kind of the 2 we cover mostly. I thought it was a really fun conversation. So we are in, we're almost end of May here. Almost end of May. Life has been flying by right now. I have been quiet on social media. I know. I'm very sorry for that. I've gotten My DM inbox is full right now. I'm very sorry. I kind of just, life is kind of just taking over right now with some other priorities right now. So I have not been super active on social media. Apologies for that. I'll try to ramp that up as we head into summer, head into fall, of course. But we're rocking and rolling here with the podcast. And I wanted to let you know we have the Gunner giveaway happening. I finally have a date announced that I can talk about the Gunner giveaway for the Fan Kit 2.0. So who doesn't love free gear? So for Patreon members only, you got to be signed up on Patreon. You can become any level of support over at patreon.com/the Upland Rookie Podcast. I'm going to announce the winner on May 31st. It's Wednesday, May 31st. I will announce the winner of the Gunner Fan Kit 2.0. You can attach that to any kennel you have. Of course, it's going to attach really, really nicely to a Gunner kennel. So you're going to get a brand new fan kit as well as an Upland Rookie hat, a couple stickers. So head over to patreon.com and get signed up as a supporter today. Greatly, greatly appreciate all of those who are signed up on Patreon right now. Thank you for your support of the podcast. Every penny over there goes back into the podcast, helping support the show, hosting fees, all sorts of stuff. I am going to be working on a website here pretty soon. Gotta get with my brother on that. He promised me a website for the price of a Yeti cooler. So I think I can make that happen for him. Dan, if you're listening, which I know you're not, I'm going to be talking to you very soon about getting the website up and rolling. So anyways, guys, again, like I said, I think this is Robert's first podcast appearance. I'm super thankful that he was able to make that happen for our listeners. Again, you may know him for some of his Upland memes. His content is actually really, really good. I love Robert's pretty authentic approach, honestly, kind of no BS attitude, just to how he approaches social media, which we do talk about on part 2. We kind of just unpack of the good and the bad of social media and how it relates to the bird hunting world and all that stuff. So we dive into that more, but I really appreciate Robert. Been chatting with him for probably a couple years now, just getting to know him a little bit more. I love seeing his passion and his humor as well. Just again, we all have our own take on hunting. I love, and I can appreciate different styles, different, so I really enjoy this conversation. I hope you guys do as well. Without further ado, we're going to dive into part 1 with Robert Poor. You good schedule as far as days on, off?
That's why I'm in it, and that was about the only thing they would take a redneck with no education or experience in when I was super young. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. It's a good.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I did the wildland stuff for about 15 years, and then jumped over to structural a few years ago just to kind of see something different and get a little closer to kind of a deal.
Yeah. How was the wildland stuff?
I loved it, man. The entire West be in your office is kind of a cool deal. Tons of traveling. 90% of the job was outdoors, not at a desk. It was a really, really nice deal.
That's cool. Yeah. That's really
took me to a lot of places that you kind of keep in the catalog.
Oh, sure.
For maybe setting sail with the truck and some bird dogs.
Yeah. Pull out your Onyx real quick and drop a pin.
Yeah, a lot of this was pre-Onyx, but you're thinking about it, you're like, because I fought fire in like Hell's Canyon and the Owyhee breaks and legendary bird country, and you're out there in July and you're watching waves of chuckers get up, and you're like, I'll be back one day. I'll be back.
With a wildland firefighter, you're not really tied to a state, right? You could be sent anywhere when there's wildfire.
Well, it kind of depends on what you're assigned to. Like if you're assigned to a interagency hotshot crew, that's a national resource. You can go anywhere.
Okay.
I was on an engine and did some hand crew stuff off and on the majority of my career. And during our core fire season, you're where you need to be. You're here. But like for us, our monsoon season that drives a lot of our Mearns quail hatch, it makes it to where nothing will burn. So with that being said, you could sit there with and twiddle your thumbs, or you can go where other places are burning, and it kind of burns latitudinally. So like Arizona kicks off first, and then Utah and Colorado, and then Washington, Oregon, that kind of a thing. So you just kind of work your way slowly north throughout the season, August, September. Usually come home about October 1st, that kind of thing.
Okay, interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Before I was a pastor, I thought I wanted to be a firefighter. I did want to be a firefighter, and then I was working at church part-time, and then they approached me about a full-time role, and I was like, wait, what? You want me to be a pastor? Okay.
That's awesome. But that's good.
I know. I know. It's been fun, but every time I see a fire truck still, I'm like, oh, that was my love. That was my.
I was a kid growing up that had no interest in it, but when I was in college and they're like, "Hey, do you want to like go dig and stir in the dirt and put fires out and see the Western public lands, and we'll pay you?" I was like, "Yeah, that seems like something I could get on."
Yeah. Where do I sign? Where do I sign?
And early on in your career, like before you get picked up, it's seasonal work. So it worked really good with like a school schedule for like
sure,
college students. A lot of, I would say a decent majority are wildland firefighters are college students, and they just do it seasonally.
Okay.
And once you kind of move on and progress and get picked up and that kind of thing, it just kind of turns into a full-time job. But it's kind of like, I'd imagine being a junkie. They give you a little bit at first.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more.
You get a taste of it.
10 years on and I've got a full-time job. Where the hell did this happen?
Right. You're like, how'd this happen? Oh, that's awesome. Well, turn into the bird dog side of things here, Robert. Fresh off the old Graham here, a couple weeks ago, we finished up with the bird dog bracket. I don't know if you saw that. I'm sure you did. I know you did because we chatted a little bit. Give me your reaction to the bird dog bracket over the last couple weeks.
I'm not so certain that it was a bird dog bracket. That's no jab at bird dog of the day, the folks that put it on. I think it was largely a pet bracket, popularity contest. Now, I say that Brittany's and short hairs aren't awesome, but boy, oh boy, there is a lot of fur mommies voting on that. For lack of a better phrase,
I get it.
A lot of running partner votes as opposed to bird dog votes, and it was shaky. I understand what they're trying to do. It was cool. It was cool to see that level of involvement.
Sure.
But you're scratching your head on like some of the pair ups, and you're like, man, how the hell did that win? They never.
There was a couple head scratchers.
Yeah. Have you ever never seen these dogs actually work at all?
Right.
But,
I think the obvious one, the pointer. What was the first? Because they went out in the first round, wasn't it? Who'd they get beat by?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I've tried to build some scar tissue around to get that. So. I can see if you were just going probably ownership and popularity, like the matchup in my head was always lab short hair, lab short hair. And I don't have any of those, so I don't even have a dog in that fight.
Sure.
But to me, like everybody's got a short hair or a lab. Everybody's got a short hair or a lab. I've had short hairs and labs both. Don't have any anymore, but that was kind of the matchup. And then like Brittany's just out of nowhere.
It surprised me big time.
Kind of Murderer's Row, knocking off all sorts of breeds.
Yeah.
It was kind of surprising. And even I did have a little bit dog in the fight in round one because they used the picture of my cocker up against a Boykin.
Oh,
and, man, the cockers got knocked off by Boykins. I was like, that's a little surprising. Too.
That is surprising because I mean the cocker craze right now, and just I thought that they were going to be an easy,
Oh, they're the cutest trend in upland hunting right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
the old cocker.
I could see if there was like a giant waterfowler presence, like leaning hard on the Boykin, and maybe there was more of than I expected.
Sure.
But you think like the waterfowlers, like the serious guys are running labs. Unless they've got like some weird nuance, like South Carolina, that's the dog of the state.
Sure.
I can see you having Boykins, absolutely. But the majority of those folks are running some sort of a retriever.
Right.
And
that Boykin cult is they're strong. They are strong and deep.
I was not expecting that.
I know.
So it was interesting. And I kept tuning back in just to watch the upsets because none of my dogs are popular. They all got booted out like super early, so I just kept waiting to see the upset, and the hits kept rolling.
It just kept coming because the setter didn't even make it super far, which is I mean for true bird dogs like that and the pointer, like those are freaking bird dogs.
Like American field placements, and it's like, yeah, none of these even make it. None of them even make it. Like it's setters, pointers. Look at the entire trialing world. It's going to be Brittany, short hairs, setters, pointers.
Right. Those are your top four.
Talk like NAVDA specifically, and then you'll start getting in, some poodle pointers have been doing really well lately.
Sure.
Obviously the draughts and the wire hairs, all that good stuff, they do well. But like, man, there were some just really interesting upsets.
There were. It was fun.
That's my take on it. But it was all in good fun, and it was fun to poke the Brittany crab. Hell, I've had Brittany's. I think a common misconception in my world is people think that I pick on breeds and I hate them, and I'm like, man, I've owned half of these, and they're all.
That's even better. When
I
you,
know I
yeah,
know some nuance, and I can pick on them maybe a little bit better.
sure.
So
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask you about the griff later on, and we'll circle back to that because you give some good.
It was just their turn.
It was just they were up next in the alphabet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Robert, before we go too much further, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everyone who we're talking to, and just give us a little overview maybe of who you are.
Yep. Name's Robert Poor. Instagram handle Borderland _Upland. I kind of, I guess, got pointed out for making memes. Been running bird dogs the majority of my life. Been upland hunting the majority of my life. I'm in my late 30s now. Everything kind of. I used to do a lot more big game, but everything's kind of moved towards the an upland centric world, and that's kind of all I want to do. I'm like doing everything I can to retire as early as I can and just do that. I'm in southeast Arizona and largely chasing quail, but do a little bit of traveling bird hunting too.
That's awesome. That's awesome,
Yeah.
man. Well, I can't wait to unpack your story a little bit more. I want to hear more about your journey, with upland hunting and all sorts of stuff here. But I know, not too long ago, you had one of your dogs get pretty sick, and Luke, is that right? How's Luke doing? Why don't you give us an update on him and kind of maybe just a synopsis of kind of what was going down?
Because there's a good reach here, and because a lot of people traveled to the Southwest this year chasing quail, there was a interesting thing happened with him. So he ended up picking up a inhaled foreign body, we're assuming a grass on, and then with that, a valley fever infection, which is huge in the Southwest. It's a fungal infection. And my concern with that for the bird dog world is that, if you're from Minnesota and you bounced down here and hunted in this stuff and got exposed to that, your vets may not be able to recognize it. So being able to pick up on, and the ugly truth about valley fever is it can manifest dozens of ways. It can show up as bone cancer, lesions, coughs, all sorts of things. And so it's one of those nebulous things that.
Sorry, those are results of those can be results of valley fever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are symptoms for it. And my brother had a dog that they diagnosed with bone cancer and ended up in valley fever. And you put him on a antifungal and life is great.
Wow.
It manifests a ton of different ways. So if people are traveling down here and their dogs are getting sick and they don't know what's happening, that's something to look at, especially for people that are coming from a part of the world where that's not a common thing. It's big in Arizona, Mexico, and California, if I'm not mistaken. But so he was fighting two infections. The odd deal is I hunted him, had no idea, no inclination he was sick. He was eating good, everything like that. I hunted him, and because he's a pup, I've been hunting him by himself a lot, trying to make him an independent bird finder on his own rather than being steered into birds by more experienced dogs. I do mix that in a little bit just to get his face in some birds, but more just wanting to create an independent, absolute bird frenzied bird finder. And so he pointed 3 species of quail that day. We had a really, really good day. I missed his Mearns quail, unfortunately. And end of the day, he stabbed a giant covey of scale quail. Wave went up, shot a bird. He went over like he knew what I was doing, picked it up, and was super proud. I let him pack it around a little bit, loaded him in the truck, drove home. And when I went to unload him, he was stoved up, sickly, didn't want to eat at all. And I usually feed right after hunting when I got home. And so myself and my wife determined that he wasn't doing good. She used to work at a vet clinic, and I've had animals all my life. And so we blasted off an hour to an emergency vet in Tucson. And about halfway there, he went unresponsive on me. Unresponsive to pain and everything. We all know how tender dogs' ears are or anything like that. I could grab a ball of his ear up and he wouldn't even wince and flinch or anything. I was raking his ribs to try to get him to lift his head just to try to keep some level of consciousness there. And they got him in, valley fever test later. They ended up finding out that he had a pneumothorax, so he had a collapsed lung on one side, as well as a pyothorax, which is a pus buildup, probably from that on.
Okay.
It had probably exited his lung, and combination of factors there between the valley fever infection and the on. He had a deflated lung and a pretty gnarly cold infection.
So real quick, the grass on, do they think is it quick? Like he might have inhaled that on that hunt, or like
he could
days or
have
weeks prior?
it's so nebulous with those things. He could have had that grass on in there for a while, and then it just started migrating and exited the lung or something like that. And they never
Okay.
came up with the on itself, which, talking with a couple of docs that literally wrote the paper on grass on infections, they're like, most of the time you don't come up with it. It's just a most likely scenario.
Okay.
With that, he's doing good now. He's on a heavy course of antibiotics for about 4 months from the onset.
Wow.
And a heavy course of an antifungal for about 6 months from the onset. And the goal is if we stop and it gets reestablished, now we have a more resistant infection. So we have to treat it as overkill is the rule, moderation's for cowards kind of an approach.
Okay.
And the Valley Fever test, they can check titer counts, and we'll be doing that about every 6 months, probably for the rest of his life. And he's just
wow.
He's probably about 1.5 years right now. So
okay.
We got a long road ahead, but he's up
and
around. We're kind of restricting movement and that kind of a thing, but he's doing good, and he has no idea he's sick. So
sure, he's a pup still.
He's a big, happy, dopey setter. So
that's crazy, man. What a journey there with him, and obviously pretty scary.
Man, it's always something. I've had my share of sick dogs. I had a Brock a couple years ago with globoid cell leukodystrophy, which caused a seizure disorder. I had a Brittany back in the day with epilepsy. So I'm just kind of waiting for a normal damn dog. And even my cocker is as healthy as the day is long, but he's suicidal. He just has no idea of self-preservation whatsoever. So don't see.
Is that most cockers though, or is your special?
I don't know. I haven't been around a ton of them. They're not a big thing down here in the Southwest. I actually got him from Tyler Sladen. And that was the first time I'd hunted over a cocker, was his river dog, and I had so much fun and just hell on wheels on desert quail. And so I was like, I got to get me a little bit of that. So he threw a litter. I bought one of those, and I just don't see a lot of them on here, but the ones I've seen are pretty rambunctious. So,
that's awesome.
Go ahead.
While we touch on the cocker, and first off, I'm glad Luke's doing better, and good luck on the journey ahead. Again, sounds like it's gonna be long, but just glad he's doing well. Just touch on the cocker. You got one. I mean, he's not too old now, right? He's pretty young still.
He's right there. So I did some really poor planning. I had a deposit in with Alder Fork English setters for probably about 10 months before ever bred and dropped a litter. And so that was just always kind of on the back burner of the setter will come when the setter comes. And then Tyler made that litter announcement for the cockers, and I was like, it's not going to line up that close. They ended up lining about 2 weeks apart. I ended up with 2 puppies about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And so for a decent little stretch there, I wanted to start a revolver, but it was... So he's right there, just older than the setter. He's, I want to say he's born in July, so coming up on 2.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what's that cocker experience like? Especially like you said, you're mostly hunting quail. Mm-hmm. How would someone use a cocker in a quail hunting situation? How do you use your cocker?
Well, I'm still kind of figuring that out a little bit. So on desert quail, which are kind of notorious runners, gambles and scaly specifically. And to put it in context, the first time I had ever hunted pheasants was, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago. And I finally started understanding how pheasants worked. And I was like, these are a 3.5 pound scaly. Okay, cool. They like to run, whatever, all that good stuff. So kind of using that same mindset and applying the cocker to desert quail. The whole goal is to keep him into gun range, and he's going to root out any living creature at all. And it works really, really well independently on desert quail. Now, if I pair him with pointers, what's amazing is that little booger will still find his own birds that we walk past. And I hunt with some buddies. Filthy Upland is his Instagram handle, Phil Wexler.
Oh, sure.
He runs some really, really nice pointing dogs. Another buddy of ours, Eric Walters, has one of the nicest Brittany's I've ever seen. And what's crazy is that little dog behind all of those dogs will still root out singles here and there. And just a tenacious retriever. And with desert quail being a lot like pheasants, they're very, very lively cripples. And if they hit the ground and bolt, they're liable to go in rodent holes, cactus patches, stuff like that. So having a tenacious little retriever there. And Phil, he marries his up with a lab. He runs a really, really nice Upland lab. and we can run those two dogs behind all of the pointers. The pointers out, a couple 100 yards doing work,
Okay.
heavies, that kind of a thing. And those flushers 25, 30 yards in doing that work and doing a lot of our.
Yeah. And like you said, they're still picking up their own birds that maybe the pointers,
Still finding their own
have passed up, or
it's the way I look at it is, in my little system here, we've got some more powerful dogs that are doing, 300-400 yard work. And, in the hound world, it'd be like a strike dog. So they're finding good coveys, that kind of a thing. And then we've got some mid-range dogs that are a little bit more thorough, like my Brock. Very, very thorough, good nose on her. She's got a cannon for a nose. And then you've got the incredibly, incredibly coarse filter of that Cocker at 25. Nothing's getting past that little bugger.
That's awesome.
Now on Merc.
Do you? Oh, go ahead.
No.
Sorry, just real quick. I think there's a little delay. Sorry, man.
No worries.
With your Cocker, real quick, do you have any goals to get where, the pointing dog points and then the Cocker goes in to flush that for the pointer?
I was just getting there. I'm glad you.
Okay, cool.
Mearns quail, with them being very, very behaved and honoring good dog work, if a pointing dog stabs them, they're going to be there when you get there. And so originally, within the spaniel world, hupping a spaniel, getting them to sit, I was having to do that initially a lot. So I'd have the little Cocker working with me, and just because he's a lot of fun, and I brought him along, and I wanted to see how this kind of dynamic was going to work in Mearns quail. And come to find out that, like, I would walk in on point and he would see that dog on point, and after hearing it and getting, a little Edison medicine and talking to and hupping and that kind of a thing, he got to where he would see, and it's not a true back like a pointing dog would expect, but he would see my main opal dog on point and he'd park his butt. Or I'd be just talking to her, trying to ease her, because it might be, 5-10 minutes walking across the canyon to get to that pointing dog on Mearns quail. And I just talk to her, hey, easy girl, you're doing good. Whoa, just super easy, calming words. And as soon as he sees her and hears me say, whoa, he parks. And so nice with that is I could get people set up in shooting lanes.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the covey rise with Mearns quail. If I could get people set up and in position and everybody back, traditionally I have done the flushing. And now I can sit back, take pictures, smile, and
not worry about getting shot.
Send in the coked out monkey with a switchblade and let him do the flush work and the retrieving work. Because largely, my setter will retrieve. He doesn't care much for it. My Brock will retrieve too. It's okay. But that Cocker, all he wants to do is bring you anything he can find. It's like a pet raccoon. He has to grab something up and bring it to you. So on the Merc,
that sounds so fun.
I would like to think that I sold some Cockers this winter to people that hunt. I'd like to think.
Yeah.
Because it's just
get a little commission from the Cocker Society.
Yeah, everybody stands back and gets in position, and then you send that little lawnmower in there, and he gets the birds moving, and you get shot angles that you just don't get with pointing dogs and when we're flushing in front of pointing dogs. When we're flushing in front of pointing dogs, birds are going away from us. We're the threat. When they see that little coked out monkey with a switchblade coming after them, I am not the threat anymore. You got birds whizzing past your head and all sorts of fun angles that you've just never seen before. And largely it's safer. And I kind of stole that from my buddy Phil, who's been doing that for years with his lab over pointing dogs on Mearns quail. And when I got him initially, it was because of a comment Maddie Rawlinson said, who runs some really, really nice Cockers. It's that they're not a tool for every situation, but they're the perfect tool for some situations. So like when I'm traveling, if you see that old broke down homestead that's real weedy that might hold a few bob whites or maybe some Huns or something like that, you can send out that Cocker and have a really fun 15-20 minute little loop there. And I just kind of slowly started adopting him into what I do here, and it's been working really, really well. I just don't, it sounds stupid. We all lose a few birds here and there, but I just don't lose birds with that dog. He is a tenacious little retriever, and he is hell on cripples. So
that is so cool. Will he be able to he say you knock down a couple buddies and yourself, knock down maybe 2-3 birds from a covey, whatever. Will he be able to then bring one back and then you'll send them out back on another, I guess we call it maybe a blind retrieve?
Yeah, exactly. So we're not there yet. We started into it a little bit last year being his puppy season. So my whole training work up through the summer and everything, we started working on that. And a good friend of mine who actually has a lab from Phil, he's a waterfowl guide here, and he's got essentially a master hunter class lab. And I was like, who better to train with to start doing the blinds and stuff with Bart, because I do a lot of dove hunting with him, and we knock down 2 or 3 doves. I want to be able to stay in our blind area, send him on a dove, get him back, line him back up, and doing that. So we're going to start working on that probably here within the next month or so. Start doing full blind. Now, I want to take him to that level. I'm testing him or putting any ribbons on him or anything like that. But I would really, really like to be able to take him to that level for blind retrieves and marks and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. Well, it sounds like a fun experience.
It's a ton of fun. Like, you can't not smile when that little dog is zapping around. You just can't.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what I hear, man.
And you're just knocking holes in the sky. You just look at him and it's like, everything is okay. There's still a world. Everything is all right. So.
Oh, cute little upland therapy dog.
Very much so. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, Robert, I'd love to unpack let's back things up a little bit. Getting into upland hunting, I know you mentioned big game, all that. Why don't you just take us through your journey a little bit? Did you grow up hunting as a kid? Was that part of your family?
Yeah.
Kind of how'd that all come about for you?
My old man was, he hunted anything that moved. And I think it's kind of a throwback of his dad hunted anything that moved, big turkey hunters, big game hunters. My old man on his own, when archery kind of came into vogue in the 80s, which is when I was born, fell in love with archery and ran an archery shop out of the small town that I grew up in. And so I just grew up in that culture. But at the same point in time, big game seasons are only, so long and that kind of a thing.
I get asked all the time, what's one piece of gear you would never hunt without? Well, that is easy. It's OnX Hunt. OnX Hunt is the #1 digital mapping software in the world. I've been using it for several years, and it makes hunting private and public land incredibly easy. Right at your fingertips, get so much information and data that you can pull up on the road hunting. Not to mention, this is an app on your phone or your iPad, but they just released an Apple CarPlay version. So if you have Apple CarPlay in your vehicle, plug in your phone and get all your pins and data with OnX right on your vehicle's display. Super sweet. Check out onxhunt.com. Use promo code ROOKIE20. Save you 20% on your OnX membership today.
And so we did a ton of small game hunting in between all that. And even when we were bow hunting, like January in Arizona especially, you can hunt over-the-counter deer, javelina. It's the best month for hunting our quail. Waterfowl are still on the menu. So everything was just kind of a combination hunt. You'd be driving along to go glass for deer, and there would be a pond there with, some pintails on it. We go jump the pond and shoot a few pintails and all that good stuff. But I remember even before I could hunt, him taking me quail hunting a lot. And that was one of his passions. He liked eating quail, so therefore you got to go shoot some quail. And I guess, more of a utilitarian mindset than we're probably used to. Like, that's food running on the ground. And so it was probably a little different mindset as far as, like, my old man was all about numbers, that kind of a thing, which has slowly shifted. Like, that's not my thing at all. Just because I don't need them. I know where they sell chicken and all that good stuff. I just really enjoy the pursuit. And so we always had a little bit of friction with that. Like, when I got a little bit older, I'm like, I don't care if they win. That's fine. I'm going back.
Sure.
And his, value as a human being was limits, that kind of a thing. But I remember he took
like that was success in his eyes.
I think it's a generational thing largely, because that was his value to his dad was, how'd you get a limit? Well, if it's good, you should have got a limit, even when we were fishing and everything like that. And I just never have been about that. I've just always enjoyed wearing a smile more than counting birds or counting fish or that kind of a thing. But very, very good hunter, very, very good mentor. Anything triggered, he could shoot better than anybody I know. Terrific rifle shot, competed in trap and pistol silhouettes and all that good stuff. So it was, and then, like I said, at a relatively high level of archery, growing up in an archery shop, I just was really fortunate to have that kind of a mentor growing up, because anything that you could think of in hunting or fishing, he could do better than you. So, and he was always willing to show you, like, don't get me wrong, he'd thump you for 30 minutes while we were fishing and then show you what he was doing. And then you could have too, but very, very good upbringing that way. I remember he took me on my first quail the first quail that I shot, he just threw the 410, and we used to do everything kind of off of a four-wheeler, and we had a utility rack on the back, and we put dog box on that. And I remember a Gambel's quail sitting in a hackberry tree, and he guided me over and guided me to it, and I tree pounded the crap out of that quail. And what was odd about that is I remember he shook my hand on that one. It wasn't like a loving embrace or anything like that. It was like, hey, welcome, you're going to be doing this forever. Kind of nothing was said, but he shook my hand and he congratulated me, and that was that. And off to the races. And a couple years after that, I was 6 when that happened. And a couple years after that, I got a 870 youth model and 20 gauge, and then off to the races. Before school, after school, chasing quail, chasing doves. Laws were a little bit looser in that time, so like I could get off the school bus when I was 13, grab the four-wheeler, throw the dogs on the dog box, and go hunt quail till dark. And I lived on the edge of town, so everything was wide open from that. So I would literally get off the school bus, grab the dogs, and go bird hunt until dark. And the rule was only you'd be home at dark, you know. And
that was the only rule.
And ran into, while we were out deer hunting one day, we ran into Dave Walker out of Idaho. He used to run a big Arizona camp, and he's kind of a legend in the Brittany world, at least the old school Brittany world. Trained under Bill Miller and all that stuff, and just some really nice field trial champions. And he gave me a Brittany. Just gave me a Brittany. I mean, he had a giant string of dogs out there, and we went out and visited him a couple times and BS with him, because, you know, when you run into another hunter, it just turns into a 3-hour BS session and that kind of a deal. And him and my dad,
and then they're your best
trading
friends.
Stories back and forth and everything like that. And then next thing you know, I'm hauling a Brittany home, like a 1.5-year old Brittany, and that was kind of the start of my dogs. We always had dogs. Like my dad had short hairs and labs. My brother had a short hair, and that was our first Brittany. And then I had Brittany's for a few years, and then got a few more short hairs. And by the time I graduated high school and college and started working on a career and everything, I didn't have any dogs, and it was probably best trying to build a career and move out on my own and kind of get my feet underneath me. But as soon as I had the opportunity again and I could start seeing some windows of time that I wasn't doing anything, it was like, it's time to get a dog again. And I ended up with like the worst lab in history, but he still did his job. He would do some retrieving work if you needed him to, but it was kind of the start back into that for me, which was good. Yeah.
Okay. So with that start back into it for you, it was kind of time to then get your own dog and kind of move forward. What led you to the lab at that point? Because it sounds like you had some experience, right, with Brittany short hairs.
We'd always had labs.
So what was the lab pickup there?
The main dog of like my childhood was a big yellow lab who was just stellar, and then dog that carried over even when I was younger, we had a black lab, and she was really good. And so like when I was, I don't know, maybe 23 or so, I was like, it's time to get a lab again. And I want a chocolate one this time. And he was just the worst dog ever. Just separation anxiety and all the bad stuff that you don't want. But at the same point in time, he was my little buddy. I had him for 14 years, just put him down last June. And he was my buddy for 14 years. And regardless of how much of a dirtbag he was, I matched him with dirtbaggishness on the other side. My little, and then there was a time there where after about 2000, Arizona quail hunting wasn't very good at all. I still did it because it's the only thing I know to do. Go whack a few quail here and there, and I feel like eating some quail. Let's go get some. But I had a buddy move into town who was into bird dogs and had a really nice rawhide clown short hair. And then about that time, this is probably about 2014, 2015, Gun Dog magazine came out with like a Brock Francais feature. And he was already looking at him, and I saw that feature too. And we kind of both came together and we're like, well, have you ever even heard of these things? They look like short hairs, but like smaller. I don't know.
Oh, hold on. My mind just exploded. So you're not talking about a Brock Italiano, right?
Brock Francais.
Brock Francais. Okay, I heard when you said Brock earlier. That's where my mind went for some reason.
I understand those puddly pasta dogs, but yeah. But we kind of got to looking at it, and then he jumped on and like didn't even bat an eye and bought one, and it showed up, and it was one of the neatest, most natural pointing dogs I've ever seen. Super user friendly. You kind of teach them their name, stab them in birds, and that's it. And then What was even crazier is when you brought them home, they went to sleep. Yeah. I was like, what the hell is this? Having short hairs, the majority of the bird dogs in my life were short hairs, with a few Brits mixed in that were nice. But I was like, man, I've never even seen this kind of behavior out of a 6-month-old dog. And we're shooting wild birds off of this dog at 6 months, and it's coming home and sleeping, and you got to wake him up in the morning at 8 a.m. And I was like, man, got to get me some of that. So I found a local breeder, ended up with a really nice one. That was the one that ended up with globoid cell leukodystrophy, unfortunately, but really, really nice local breeder. They supported me through that whole process, and even got me a replacement dog. And that's the Opal dog you guys see on my Instagram. Okay. She was replacement dog, so the best free dog ever. But she's
so talk about those Brocks a little more. So are they kind of like a more chill short hair? So if I had to, a little more trainable, or what are they like?
Yes and no. They're very, very soft, very, very soft and biddable, kind of like a Brittany or maybe even a French Brit. They don't take a lot of pressure, but they kind of don't need a lot in my experience. So they're smaller. They tend to be smaller than short hairs. Like Opal's about 38 pounds at hunting weight. Her fat off-season weight's maybe about 40, 42 pounds, that kind of a thing. And it's just so damn hot here in the summertime, it's hard to keep them running. We do have a down season where I'm not doing much with them. They just work their hind parts off all winter. We're going to rest them for a couple months, and then I'll start doing my workup in about August. But back to the Brocks, they just they're smaller. They're a little bit leggier. They seem to have, just visually to me, a little bit deeper chest. And if you read about like the Pyrenees region between France and Spain, it's a lot like the stuff I hunt in here. So it's rocky, can be kind of warm into the 90s, that kind of a deal. And so they're kind of a dog built over there that fits really well in the country that I have here. And so they have the nice short coat like a short hair. They look like a short hair to most people. Everybody says nice short hair. And I just kind of nod and move on with my day, because I just don't feel like that guy that explains them. But their feet hold up really well because they're kind of smaller and lighter. And in this country eats dogs' feet for a living. And I just don't have to worry about her feet. I can hunt her, like when we go to, pheasant hunts or something like that in the Midwest, I can run her hard 35 to 40 miles a day and her feet are fine, because that's the nicest ground she's ever seen, ever. Everything here is volcanic rock. Pairs your feet up, and there's a lot of up and down. I will say that they have an odd gait to them. So it's not like an all-out lope or run like a pointer or anything like that. It's
okay.
Horse people would know this better than I would, but it's just kind of a camber. She just kind of cambers along, and it's a weird pace at about 7-8 miles an hour, something like that if you're onto the Garmin. But she can do 7 or 8 mile an hour pace for 5 days straight. Whereas
for a long time,
a super flashy setter or pointer, they're going to lean on 12, 13 miles an hour, and by noon they're shot. They're done. And so I just kind of refer to her as my little metronome dog. She just kind of, just does her thing.
And how far out are these dogs ranging? Are they a little more mid-range? It
depends on the cover. So I would call it a mid-range. I don't see any need to have a pointing dog that only hunts about 40 yards. If that's the case, I'll just run the flusher. But Opal's average range in kind of our broken hilly oak savanna on Mearns country is about 80 to 120 yards. If I are in a wide open scaly country, nice big flats, that kind of thing, she'll lean out to about 200 yards, something like that. If it gets thicker, she'll pull into, maybe that 60 or 80 yards kind of a deal. And she adjusts really well on her own. I'm not a big fan of talking to her. I don't like talking to my dogs, that kind of stuff. She just adjusts to the cover, and if we're not finding birds, walk more and slow down. So
and she'll
kind of does her thing. She's about the most Ronco Showtime oven you can imagine. You just kind of set at it. Kind of.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I don't even know. And again, if I've seen one, I might have thought it was a short hair. So I'd love to see one of those.
Kind of got that little dish nose on them, like a grizzly bear. Brocks have got the same thing. So if you see kind of a dainty little short hair that's leggy, got a deep chest, and they got that stupid little dish nose on them, that's probably
okay.
Yeah,
I'll be looking.
But if it makes you feel
for
any
that.
better, I take her to the damn vet, and they're like, "Oh, I had nice short hair," and I'm like, "Yeah, all right, whatever."
Yeah. Whatever.
That's
Gonna
what
let
you
it
get for
go.
having
Let it
your
go.
dog, though. That's the price you pay. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly because I'm curious. Talk a little bit about your. I know you don't have Brits anymore, right? But you said you ran Brits
In
a while
the
back.
late '90s, early 2000s. Yeah. So,
Okay. Were those to you? Were those
yeah,
pretty good dogs that you were
and
running?
I think with everything else,
Or
there's a bajillion breeds out there, and I had really good experiences with my Brits. Even the one that had epilepsy, it'd make him, a couple times a year. But
okay.
other than that, he was just a hunting phenom. I think he was a lot of dog for me at the time because he came out of trial lines, Dave Walker's trial line. And for like a 13-year-old kid, that's a lot of damn dog.
Oh, geez. I forgot. Yeah. I forgot how young you were then.
I was just a kid, and it was a lot of dog. But I've never had a heartache with any of them. Like some of the nicest dogs I consistently hunt over that buddies have are Brits. Like I said, my buddy Eric has got just an absolute phenom of a Brit named Dexter, and I don't know any of his lines or anything like that. I just know he's a damn killer. And he's kind of a weird little plod along dog too. He just kind of picks his way along, and then the next thing you know, everybody's Garmin's going off. Well, Dexter point somewhere, and you don't even know when it happened. He just kind of does a ninja vanish, and then he's got birds somewhere. But yeah, great dogs. I'm not in love with the coat on them. If I had one gripe, it would be the coat. In dealing with birds and stick ups and stuff like that. But it's the same with the setter, and it's the same with the cocker. You just kind of come up with a system to deal with them. But they seem to do well. Brits are super popular down here in Arizona. If you're running pointing dogs, it's short hairs or Brits, one of the two. And they're super popular down here. There's some really, really nice lines coming out of this part of the world that I'm not super familiar with, but I know that when people shoot them, birds die. I think the big takeaway in making fun of every breed, as I've kind of made a passion of doing, is if somebody's new and coming into this, does mom do what I want on the bird I want in the country I hunt in, and does dad do what I want on the bird I want in the country I hunt in? Odds are, if that lines up, regardless of whatever the pedigree says the hell it is, it's probably going to do what you want, So
yeah. Got a little history behind it, and got some proving grounds of
behind it is try to find something that's doing what you like, and then odds are that litter's probably going to do something like that. I'm a big believer in you don't pick puppies, you pick litters. And like when I got Luke, fortunately Robert Jones turned me on to that litter, and Paul over there at Alder Fork. But Paul had been coming down here in winters for years, and his dogs are just absolutely hammering Mearns quail. And I was like, well, okay, cool. What kind of distance are they hunting? We starts that conversation of, okay, what are we looking for? Because I'm looking to throw a bigger net here. Well, okay, maybe this is a good fit for you then. And kind of how we went around that. But they did it on my ground, on my bird. And so,
so that kind of checked your box there.
Deal. Well, who do I send the check to?
And was that your first? Yeah, is this your first setter?
Okay. So I'm kind of dabbling. That's I don't know. None of us know how many laps we get around on this rock. So there's just a lot of stuff out there I want to see, and so like I've been kind of just the cocker, and it started with the Brocs actually. Kind of like, I don't know what the hell they are. Let's try that for a while, and I really like them. And then the cocker is a lot of fun.
I like your attitude. It's kind of like, let's try it.
And I mean, they all. Once again, if you get them from the right people, they all do awesome stuff. Like, as hard as I'd pick on draughts, before I was looking at Brocs, I was looking at draughts and was really thinking about a draught quite. And because at the time I was like, okay, this is going to be a one dog household, which is not how it ended up being. But this is going to be a one dog household. Let's go get that Swiss Army knife dog and maybe do a lot of things with that one dog. And kind of ran into a few roadblocks here and there with some drop breeders of like, and I understand why they do it, and I approve of why they do it. But like, hey, if you get a puppy from us, we're going to want them tested at this date and at this date and this date. And I'm like, I'm cutting you a check and buying a puppy. I'll be damned if you're going to tell me what I'm going to do with that puppy, because I'm a little feral in nature. And like, if you went and bought a car and they said, okay, we're going to mandate that you do this, and this, you're going to put this sticker on this part of the windshield and that kind of a deal, you tell them go to hell. So I just kind of apply that to the life, kind of a little feral. And so I was just like, it's just not for me right now, you know.
Forget
But
it. Yeah.
grew up a lot of folks around me
That makes
had some
sense.
really nice wire hairs, and I've seen wire hairs do some really really
Okay.
nice work in this part of the world.
Are they pretty common? Are they pretty common
There's
in Arizona?
lots of
Just
wire
because of coat and heat and all
difference.
that,
So
or not really?
when I was a kid, there were short hairs and wire hairs everywhere. And we're starting to see it come back, but it's just with the resurgence of quail. So when quail numbers dove off in Arizona in the late 90s, early 2000s, bird dogs did too. And so a lot of people I know just like, their dog aged out and they never re-upped, that kind of a thing. But with the resurgence of Southwest quail, you're starting to see a lot more stuff again. You're starting to see everything, and whether they're visiting or they're locals or whatever. Like there's a guy 30 minutes away from me who runs a really nice poodle pointer kennel. I didn't even know what the hell that was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you're just starting to see some stuff up. But
That's cool.
it's
Cool.
driven
Seeing
by
different
birds.
breeds.
It's absolutely driven by birds. If we've got birds,
Oh,
people are
absolutely.
getting stuff. I mean, people still don't know what the hell a Brock is,
Sure.
but, I'm bringing one here and maybe a few people seeing them here and there. People are like, oh, well, that's a Brock. Okay, cool. And they never would 20 years ago, It's
Sure.
driven by quail. So,
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing, while we're talking about dogs here, as far as the training side goes, are you having someone train your dogs like a pro? Are you training your dogs? If so, are you just kind of figuring this out on your own? Like talk a little bit on the training side for your dogs and
so the answer
what
is
that's
yes.
been like.
So growing up, we had a pigeon loft and we did it all on our own. And when I got that Brittany from Dave Walker, he had a VHS at the time called Meat on the Table. And for $60, you could get that VHS. And a lot of it's like the Gibbons West method that we know now, but this is, infancy stage of Gibbons West stuff. And VHS, and you could get a 12-foot check cord and what we're knowing as a pinch collar now, that leather collar with the studs on the inside flat. That was cutting edge stuff in 1990.
Yep.
So, and so I got that, kind of used that for some bird dogs for a few years. And then when I kind of got back into the pointing dogs, YouTube was a thing by this point. And so just kind of dabbling on some stuff here and there, still kind of sticking with like some Gibbons West stuff and doing it on my own. But being a big believer in the best teacher out there is birds. And I still believe that like if you teach a dog their name and you shove them in birds and you reward the behaviors you want, like don't shoot knocked birds, that kind of a thing, that they kind of catch on their own. But I've never taken a dog from like steady to wing shot and fall because it's just never been an interest of mine. Wanting to do it now just to gain the experience of doing it. Now, I bought the setter for a couple of reasons. I wanted to throw a bigger net, have a little bit more horsepower for bigger country. Like I'm wanting to start dabbling in some of the prairie states. And if you walk 60 yards the wrong side of a bird with a tight running dog, you don't find those birds. So wanting to throw a little bit bigger of a net and wanting to challenge myself as a trainer and maybe deal with something a little bit harder headed. Because all of my dogs have been pretty darn biddable, and wanting to grow as a handler. And with that, there was a little bit of learning curve here and there. Nothing bad and nothing to his detriment at all. But some weird little hangups here and there. And there's a phenomenal local trainer by the name of Guy Mollicone Kennels. And he helped me out a little bit with Luke here and there on some stuff. And more than anything, he just had, because he's a full-time pro trainer and I don't have a pigeon loft anymore, he had access to birds and he has access to, 20 years of that knowledge of putting his hands on thousands of dogs. And something that blew my mind in, because I've never worked with a pro trainer in my life. And watching him as I'd come out and, help him and hammer stakes and plant birds and shoot birds for him and that kind of stuff so he could handle dogs. A pro trainer, the quality of product you get from them, I was never a believer in until I saw they've had their hands on so many dogs and they have to have a commercially replicatable system. And the timeline that they get stuff done in is unfathomable to a guy who trains his dogs. So like watching him will break out a dog, it's like, holy crap, I just watched that happen in front of my eyes instead of this like month and a half, 2 month long process of, that kind of a deal. And I'm like, holy crap, I just watched that happen right now. And it's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to start and keep that relationship open and keep working with that guy. He is just unreal and just kind of a dog whisperer when it comes to that kind of a thing. And I just want to kind of apprentice under that kind of a system and just get as much as I can, because I'm kind of sick with it, in the sense of I just love it. You get a lot of dogs.
Sure. And when you see it, like you said, like when you see it firsthand, it also kind of clicks more too. Because I can watch even a video on YouTube. I can watch videos. I can read till nauseum on whatever, wheel breaking, force fetch, whatever it is. But until you really see someone who's really, really good at it, kind of live in person, and you can ask questions,
like stupid,
it kind of changes the game a little bit.
We're talking clicker training for marking good behavior, right? Well, we were doing some stuff like that on a woe board, and he's marking good behavior with a word or something like that. He's also marking negative behavior, like when they would step off. And I'm like, why didn't I ever think of that? I've always marked the good side, but I never marked the negative side. So used to lifting a dog back up and putting him back, that kind of a deal. And he would just And because he's marking both sides of behavior, the time frame gets literally cut in half. Mind blowing. I was like, wow. I've been doing it my whole life and I have never seen that. He's marking good behavior and marking negative.
I don't think I've heard that before either.
But yeah, the name's Guy Mollicone, Mollicone Kennels. He is just the nicest person ever and just a fountain of knowledge. If you're just hanging out with him, putting birds in a bag or whatever, there's just gems falling out of the sky all the time. You're like,
just left and right. You're like,
he trained under West as well. So like that whole West method, I mean, it's strong in this part of the world. So yeah. You mentioned book.
Cool. That's cool.
A book that is always influential to me was I think it's something along the lines of teaching dogs to teach themselves. If you Amazon that, you can find that book too. But every time I get a puppy, I reread that book, and kind of a good family.
Okay. What do you think?
Teaching bird dogs how to
again?
Teach themselves, something like that.
Well, that is a wrap of part 1 with Robert. Make sure you come back for part 2. I'll drop that in a few days from now. Sorry to leave you kind of in the middle of that, but definitely a lengthy conversation that would break up into 2 parts. So, hey guys, just a reminder, if you have not left a rating and review, I have a lot of new listeners over the last several months. If you have just started listening to the podcast and are enjoying it, would you do me a huge, huge favor and head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and drop a rating and review. I love seeing the written reviews, love learning what the show's impact is having on people out there who are actually listening. I love reading those. Gives me kind of a pulse on how the show's doing, what you want more of, what you want less of, how the show is, again, helping inspire you in some way or another. So head over there, leave a rating and review, would be very, very helpful. Also check out the YouTube channel. I've been dropping podcast episodes over at YouTube as well. So I know some of you just love consuming your content on the YouTube platform, which is awesome. So I have started uploading all podcast episodes over at youtube.com. If you haven't heard of it, well, we probably have some other things to talk about. Hey guys, until next week, go put some miles on those boots and follow your favorite bird dog. Stay tuned. Part 2 is coming up in a few days.